This is Chancellor Mozabanda with the news on Zodiac. The headlines this hour. Human rights activists insist that bridging the gap between the rich and the poor is critical to achieving real democracy in Malawi. Civil society organizations encourage Malawians to join hands and report incidents of corruption when they occur. Health authorities say the country has made remarkable progress in reducing the number of HIV new infections. And in sports, Bankers Association of Malawi Sports Day returns this year after a COVID-19 induced break. We now give you the news in detail. Human rights and governance commentators believe that bridging the gap between the rich and the poor is critical to achieving real democracy in Malawi. Speaking on the International Day of Democracy Wednesday, HRDC chairperson Gift Trappins and governance commentator Victor Chipofya say despite the country achieving more democratically, choosing its leaders, this could be meaningless without socio-economic rights for all. We have this report filed by Western Guta.
Today, 15th September, Malawi joins the world in commemorating democracy, but with some experts bemoaning huge socio-economic gaps between the poor and the rich. HRDC chairperson Gift Trappins feels that citizen participation is impossible where there are such gaps.
You need also strong institutions that has an oversight role to make sure that accountability issues are followed. In this case, the Department Bureau, the Ombudsman Office.
Political and governance expert Victor Chipofya is of the view that understanding governance issues can greatly contribute to the country's democracy, which is not the case in Malawi, as 70% of the population is not aware of the matter.
This is a population that's responsible for choosing the leaders. So maybe that may reflect badly on the kind of decisions that the populace might make.
Some Malawians feel that the huge economic gap between the rich and the poor is worrisome, despite some strides being made.
Even in government, the contracts are given to rich people, but there are also poor people who can manage more than the rich ones. At least they should empower the poor as well, give them those contracts so that all should have money.
We have seen efforts by the state to stifle the civic space, either through bad laws, sometimes even through use of security agencies to restrict people's rights. But again, we have also seen deliberately allocate inadequate funding to governance institutions.
For Zodiac, this is Western Guta.
Meanwhile, Minister of Information Gospel Kazako says the fact that the citizenry is free to criticize the government is evidence enough that democracy is working in Malawi. He explains.
Nearly 140 heads of state and Nobel Prize winners have lamented German government's continued opposition to a temporary waiver of the World Trade Organization intellectual property rules for COVID-19 vaccines. The leaders, including former French President François Hollande, former British Prime Minister Gordon Brown, former Malawi President Joyce Banda, and 3 Nobel Prize laureates.
At least 140 former heads of state and Nobel laureates have called on those aspiring for the position of German Chancellor in the forthcoming elections to relinquish intellectual property rules for COVID-19 vaccine to allow sharing of vaccine technology with others. The heads of state, including Malawi's former President Joyce Banda, made the call through a letter in which they say sharing of vaccine technology will ensure mass vaccine production, subsequently allowing more people, especially in developing countries, access vaccines. John Pokayon reports.
Nearly 140 heads of state and Nobel Prize winners have lamented German government's continued opposition to a temporary waiver of the World Trade Organization intellectual property rules for COVID-19 vaccines. The leaders, including former French President François Hollande, former British Prime Minister Gordon Brown, former Malawi President Joyce Banda, and 3 Nobel Prize laureates, say the move is unfortunate, especially now that the artificial restriction on manufacturing and supply is leading to thousands of unnecessary deaths from COVID-19 each day. In a letter coordinated by People's Vaccine Alliance, a consortium of over 70 organizations, including Club de Madrid, Oxfam, and UNAIDS, the leaders have emphasized that ending German opposition to waiving copyright is vital to overcoming vaccine monopolies, transferring of vaccine technology, and scaling up vaccine manufacturing around the world to prevent millions more deaths from COVID-19. They have since called on the 3 candidates to be next German Chancellor to make a commitment to waiver the intellectual property rules for COVID-19 vaccine once in office adding Germany has the ability to end the pandemic. First proposed by India and South Africa in October 2020, the waiver is now supported by over 100 nations, with France and the United States of America recently joining the cause. In December last year, the World Trade Organization drummed up support by calling on countries to temporarily waiver the intellectual property rules for COVID-19 vaccines to allow global access. For Zodiac, this is John Paul Kayuni.
We now go back to our story on the International Day of Democracy, where Minister of Information Gospel Kazako says the fact that the citizenry is free to criticize the government is evidence enough that democracy is working in Malawi.
By merely allowing people to question this government, to make contributions, mean there is democracy in this country. Look, they are talking about us funding the Anti-Corruption Bureau. That is already happening. In fact, the Anti-Corruption Bureau and other institutions that are monitoring and enhancing the issues of democracy, they have adequate resources. So far, so good. But as you are aware, that democracy is a process that has to have a continuous progression that is meant to make it better time and again. So it's not just government alone. Yes, government has a role, but again, the citizenry also have a very big role to play in understanding democracy. This is why we are advancing policies and principles that will ensure that we make this country very productive. And as you are aware, we are also getting down to the very people that are in majority by involving them in different activities. Just recently, the president made a directive that small and medium scale business people must be given all the opportunities to ensure that they get business from government and elsewhere. That is part of the equation of ensuring that resources, opportunities are trickling down to the people, because that is what is going to assist in the narrowing down of the gap that is there between the rich and the poor.
Some civil society organizations are encouraging Malawians to join hands and report incidents of corruption when they occur. Human Rights Defenders Coalition HRDC chairperson Gift Trappens, speaking during an engagement with Anti-Corruption Bureau officials, said it is worrisome that only 20% of Malawians are able to report corrupt practices to ACB. Chimwe Badata reports.
The Anti-Corruption Bureau, ACB, engaged civil society organizations in a familiarization drive of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy No. 2. During the engagement, some CSOs complained that a lot of Malawians are still reluctant to report corrupt acts. Chairperson for the HRDC, Gift Trapensi, says priority should now be put towards sensitizing the masses.
I think this is a very important meeting that also shape our work so that we're able to report corruption cases timely, but also understanding what it takes to report any related corruption incidents.
But ACB's Deputy Director General, Elia Bodole, is admitting of the current situation.
Malawians are still afraid. We have a culture of not reporting corruption, and there is a high complicity to corrupt practices. There are people who look at somebody indulging in corruption as somebody who is really good. But that's not the thing. We need to change this perception.
Statistics show that only 20% of the population is able to report corruption. But the National Anti-Corruption Strategy No. 2 was rolled out in 2019. It is the country's blueprint that envisions a corrupt-free society by 2024. This is Chimwemwe Padata for Zodiac.
The Malawi Electoral Commission has refused to pay Nkata Bay Central parliamentarian Simon Mvua Kaunda 600 million kwacha compensation, which he demanded in August for the suffering he endured for going to the polls twice. MEC Director of Legal Services David Matumika Kuma has confirmed of the development of the Zodiac, saying communication on the same has been made to Kaunda's legal team. Alinafe Mlambas filed this report.
In August this year, Simon Mvua Kaunda demanded 600 million kwacha from the Malawi Electoral Commission as compensation from his elections case against Rafu Mhone. The parliamentarian demanded the compensation through his lawyers on grounds that he suffered psychological, physical, and economic loss having gone to the parliamentary election twice. The commission was given 2 weeks to settle the payment, but a month has elapsed, and MEC legal counsel David Marumiga Banda has now come out in the open to say the commission will not compensate Kaunda.
We communicated to the lawyers why we are not paying. I'm sure the lawyer understands the ground, and I'm sure maybe he will be able to explain to his client why the commission says that it's not liable to pay that amount.
When contacted, Vuagaunda and his lawyer, Leonard Mbulu, declined to comment on the issue. The Nkarabe Central Parliamentarian was reinstated following his victory in the fresh election held on June 30th this year, after the May 2019 parliamentary election was nullified by the Supreme Court of Appeal, citing several irregularities.
Tour operator Mystical Safaris has joined the government in sensitizing the general public to get COVID-19 vaccine as one way of combating the spread of the pandemic. The group's managing director, Jacinto Amao, told journalists Wednesday that they have partnered with cyclists in Malawi to sensitize the general public to go and get vaccinated against COVID-19. One of the cyclists in Malawi, Samson Piri, said they have been greatly affected by COVID-19, hence the decision to join Mystical Safaris to sensitize the masses to get the jab. Mike Nkemezu has filed this report.
COVID-19 has affected many sectors in Malawi, and the tourism industry has not been spared. This has prompted tour operator Mystical Safaris to help government in sensitizing the general public on the positives of getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Mystical Safaris managing director Jacinto Amao told journalists in Lilongwe Wednesday that as part of an awareness campaign, they have organized a fundraising activity which is aimed at spreading messages even in rural areas.
Okay, as you said, we aim to raise 7 million from this initiative. And from that 7 million, we're going to buy masks that we're going to give to school children in the rural areas.
Commenting on the issue, one of the cyclists in Malawi, Samson Piri, said COVID-19 has affected them greatly due to the cancellation of the scheduled events. He was, however, optimistic that the COVID-19 will be reduced through his awareness campaign.
We are hoping that with the attraction that we mostly do whenever we're cycling, a lot of people will come, and through that we'll reach out to people on why they should get vaccinated, on the benefits, and also trying to get rid of all the myths that are associated with the vaccination, so that life can get back to normal and all the things that have been hinged by this vaccination should go.
As of Tuesday, at least 457,000 people have been fully vaccinated.
You're watching the news here on Zodiac. We'll be back with more after this.
Mipando ya sofa, dining set, mabedi, coffee table zisamakhale ngati zolandira kuli kufanana ayi. Ku Davina Furnitures amapanga mipando, masofa set, dining set mmene inuyo eni yake mukufunira, podziwa kuti anthufe timakhala nkukonda kosiyanasiyana.
Hide me. Hide me.
Ian, why are you hiding?
I took some money on Caterpillar from that guy.
Really?
Yes.
Why did you have to take some Caterpillar from that guy, Ian?
I just needed a ticket to a music concert.
Come on, Ian. You need to have some valid reasons on why you want to borrow some money. And why taking some money from Caterpillar when there are some registered institutions in this country? You can go to banks, you can join some circles. There are microfinance institutions out there where you can go and borrow some money. And the good thing with these institutions is that when you go to borrow some money, they advise you on how much money you can borrow, comparing with your income. And there are also some terms and conditions you need to understand before borrowing some money. Okay. The issues of interest rates, the issues of a repayment plan, how are you going to be servicing the loan, the issues of collateral. All these things, they are clearly laid out when you go to these registered institutions than taking money from that Caterpillar guy. Eh? This is an embarrassment. Ian, he is coming.
Borrow wisely. Pay back your loans. Always read and understand the terms and conditions before signing any financial contract.
Charismatic International Primary School is informing the general public that it has opened a Cambridge syllabus school in Area 49 in New Shire. Charismatic International Primary School offers grade 1 to 6 and kindergarten. The school has all the facilities recommended for international curriculum. The school fees are affordable to suit your budget plan. Registration is in progress. Come and enroll now at Charismatic International Primary School. For more information, contact Charismatic International Primary School on 0999 966 644 or 0888 124 309. Charismatic School, we thrive in excellence.
At Access, we believe that data is life because we know that you want to know what's happening out there. And you also need to share what's happening with your life. You would like to say hi to your friends, like what they do, and also sneak up on your experience. Access Data, the only truly affordable fast data in Malawi. Visit your nearest Access shop and enjoy the best data deals and access your world. Access your world.
Welcome back. A look at the headlines as we continue. The Ministry of Health says the country has made remarkable progress in reducing the number of HIV new infections, 19,000 this year against 32,000 in 2019. Minister responsible Kumbize Kandodo Chiponda, who was speaking at the launch of PrEP guidelines and communication strategy, says while there are strides registered this far, there is need to scale up efforts and reduce number of infections in the country. PrEP, which is taken before exposure to contracting the virus, has come at a time when Malawi intends to attain reduction in new infections to 11,000 by 2025. Andrew Viana has filed this report.
Malawi has recorded remarkable strides in responding to HIV and AIDS, with latest statistics indicating that the country has reduced new infections from 32,000 in 2019 to 19,000 in 2021. The figures, which were presented Wednesday at the launch of HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis, PrEP guidelines and communication strategy, are however indicating that Malawi missed the benchmark by UNAIDS that had envisioned a 75% reduction in new infections by 2020 in its member states. Health Minister Kumbize Kandodo Chiponda, who emphasized the need for Malawi to enhance prevention than treatment, has called on people who are exposed to contracting the virus to seek PrEP in the nearest health facilities and help in reducing the spread of HIV.
These are tablets which one takes in order to prevent from getting the virus, so you take on a daily basis. It is very important and very critical step which we have started, because this is going to prevent a lot of our youth as well as women and men in general from getting the HIV virus.
Meanwhile, PEPFAR country coordinator Fumia Desanya says her organization intends to assist the country to access injectable PrEP in the near future.
A lot of countries in the region have really been progressing with PrEP. We know that it works. We know that it's really something that young people are looking forward to and accessing. So especially looking at adolescent girls and young women. Our DREAMS program, which is our prevention program to reach adolescent girls and young women, and working with commercial sex workers, is just an opportunity to provide an additional tool in our toolbox to really close the tap on HIV prevention.
Nearly 1,000 people are now taking pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP medicine that slashed the risk of HIV infections by over 90%. Statistics from the Ministry of Health show that about 900,000 people are living with HIV and are currently accessing the antiretroviral drugs, ARVs, in the country.
The Human Rights Defenders Coalition HRDC has welcomed the arrest of 3 senior officials from Malawi Leaf Company and a business person on allegations that they stole 20 billion kwacha. Those arrested are Jimmy Kasamali, Francis Madonna, and Evans Matabwa, and business person Arthur Madikula. Speaking in an interview with Zodiac, the coalition's chairperson, Gift Trappens, added that their expectation is that the matter will be handled with sense of urgency for justice to take its course. Minister of Homeland Security Richard Chimwendo Banda has pleaded with chiefs to be alert in curbing increasing incidents of human trafficking in the country. Speaking during the orientation of chiefs in Blantyre, Minister Chimwendo Banda expressed worry that most of those trafficked are children. Meanwhile, Director of Chiefs Charles Makanga thinks chiefs need to be imparted with relevant knowledge on laws that safeguard human trafficking. Andrew Mane has filed this report.
Homeland Minister Richard Chimwendo Banda says he's worried with the increasing cases of human trafficking in the country. The minister says as law enforcers and other security agencies are playing their role to curb the malpractices, there is need for chiefs across the country to be alert in protecting people, especially children, from being trafficked.
Government is doing everything possible to fight human trafficking, and we find out that chiefs are the biggest stakeholder, because they're the people that are staying with the people in the community, and they're the ones who can first trace what is happening and connect very well with our ministry. That is why today we are meeting all senior chiefs in the southern region, just to empower them with knowledge, but also establish linkages with them.
Meanwhile, Director of Chiefs in the Ministry of Local Government, Charles Makanga, has asked the government to impart chiefs with knowledge on laws that safeguard human trafficking, arguing that most chiefs in the country lack knowledge on the laws pertaining to human trafficking. Police reports indicate that in 2020, 688 people were rescued from human trafficking.
Let's now move on to sports. The Bankers Association of Malawi, BAM, has announced the resumption of its National Sports Day this year. Addressing the media in Blantyre Tuesday, BAM Chief Executive Officer Linus Nkungula said this year's event will be conducted this month at Kamuzu University of Health Sciences, Kuhes Sports Complex in Blantyre, and will include golf, cycling, basketball and football. She said the event will also be held to raise 31.5 million kwacha to buy books and desks at Nkope Community Day Secondary School in Mangochi. Karen Chinembili has filed this report.
The Bankers Association of Malawi Executive Director Linus Nkungula says this year's National Sports Day will be held on September 25. She said through the event, which will include football, golf, basketball and cycling, they expect to raise about 32 million kwacha to support Nkope Community Day Secondary School in Mangochi to buy basics.
Community school called in Nkope in Mangochi. We have decided to help out this school because it's in dire need of many things, including desks, toilets, even as well as books. But with our resources, we thought that we should start with the desks. If we can have a lot of money from the charity golf, then we can also buy them books.
On his part, Chairperson of the committee, T.S. Kaimira, said preparations are at an advanced stage. He, however, explained that they have this year limited sporting disciplines because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And that's about what we had time for in this news edition, but before we go, a look at the headlines. Human Rights Active News. My name is Chancellor Mozobanda. Thanks for watching.